The day I understood my first English sentence, I felt something strange inside me. It was not magic. It was not success. It was hope. Hope that maybe one day I could speak English without fear. Hope that maybe one day I could understand movies without subtitles. Hope that maybe one day I could speak to people from different countries. But at that time, English looked like a mountain too high to climb, and I was only a boy from Barcelona. Hello everybody, my name is Leo. I was born in beautiful Barcelona, a city full of life, music, football and beautiful streets. Every morning, the city woke up with energy. People walked quickly to work, tourists visited famous places, and children played in the streets with happy voices. As a child, I loved watching people. I loved hearing different languages around me. In Barcelona, many tourists came from around the world. I heard English everywhere, in cafes, buses, parks and airports. But to me, English sounded impossible. When English speakers talked, it felt too fast. The words mixed together. I could not understand anything. Sometimes I heard people speaking English and thought, how can they speak so fast? Will I ever understand this language? The truth was simple. I was afraid. Afraid of making mistakes. Afraid of saying the wrong word. Afraid that people would laugh at me. So instead of trying, I stayed quiet. When I was younger, English was only another school subject. Like many students, I studied grammar rules, difficult vocabulary, and long exercises. I memorized words. I forgot them. I studied grammar. I forgot it too. Every time I tried to speak, my mind became empty. I knew some words, but I could not make sentences. I understood small things, but real conversations felt impossible. And little by little, I started believing something dangerous. Maybe English was not for me. Maybe I was too slow. Maybe I was not smart enough. One afternoon, everything changed. I still remember that day. I was sitting in my room after school. Outside, the streets of Barcelona were full of people enjoying the warm evening. I could hear voices from outside my window. I opened my phone and watched a short video in English. At first, I understood almost nothing, but then I heard one sentence, a very simple sentence, never stop trying. Only 3 words, but something happened inside me. I understood them clearly for the first time. English did not feel impossible. It felt real, small, reachable. I said those words again and again. Never stop trying. That night, I made a promise to myself. I said, Leo, maybe you are not fluent today. Maybe your English is bad today. But if you keep learning, one day you will improve. That promise changed my life. I started small, very small. I stopped trying to learn hundreds of words every day. Instead, I learned 5 new words. Only 5, but I learned them well. I repeated them. I used them in sentences. I spoke to myself in English. Sometimes I looked crazy. I walked around my room saying things like, I am hungry. Today is a beautiful day. I want to improve my English. Small sentences, simple words, but something important was happening. English slowly became part of my life. Every morning, I listened to English. Every night, I watched videos. I started reading small stories for English learners. At first, reading was difficult, very difficult. I stopped many times. Sometimes I wanted to quit. I opened a page, and saw too many new words. My head hurt. My confidence disappeared. But then I remembered those 3 words: never stop trying. So I continued, slowly, 1 page, then 2 pages, then 3, and something surprising happened. Words started becoming familiar. I began recognizing them. Simple sentences became easier. My brain slowly changed. But my biggest enemy was not grammar. It was fear. Fear followed me everywhere. Whenever I wanted to speak English, fear stood beside me. What if you make mistakes? What if people laugh? What if your pronunciation is terrible? And honestly, sometimes my pronunciation was terrible. Sometimes I forgot easy words. Sometimes I made embarrassing mistakes. One day, I tried speaking English with a tourist in Barcelona. I was nervous, very nervous. My hands almost shook. The tourist asked me something simple, but I became frozen. I forgot everything. Even easy words disappeared from my mind. I answered badly, very badly. After that conversation, I felt embarrassed. I walked home feeling disappointed. I thought, maybe I am not improving. Maybe I am wasting my time. But later that night, I realized something important. I had actually spoken English. Yes, it was imperfect. Yes, I made mistakes. But I tried. And trying matters. That day taught me something powerful. You do not improve before speaking. You improve by speaking. That changed everything. I stopped waiting to become perfect. Instead, I started speaking badly. Yes, badly. Because bad English was still better than silence. I began reading English aloud. I copied pronunciation. I repeated sentences from movies. Sometimes I paused videos and spoke like the actors. Sometimes I sounded funny. Sometimes I sounded terrible. But slowly, my confidence grew. Little by little, step by step, day by day. Months passed. My English became stronger. Not perfect, but stronger. I could understand more videos. I could read easier books. I could understand songs better. And something beautiful happened. I stopped translating every word in my head. For the first time, I started thinking in English. Small thoughts, very small. I need water. I am tired. This food is delicious. Simple things, but for me, it felt amazing because I knew I was changing. I remember walking through the streets of Barcelona one evening. The sky was orange. People were laughing in cafes. Tourists walked around taking pictures. I suddenly heard English near me. Normally, I ignored conversations because they sounded too difficult. But this time was different. I understood some words, then more words, then almost the whole conversation. I stopped walking. I smiled, a real smile, because I realized something. I was improving, slowly, but truly. Nobody noticed that moment. Nobody clapped for me. Nobody celebrated. But inside my heart, it felt like a victory, a small victory, but still a victory. And that is something many English learners forget. Progress is often invisible. Sometimes you improve without noticing. You feel stuck, but your brain is learning quietly. Every video, every sentence, every mistake, every difficult day, it all matters. Of course, my journey was not easy. There were days when I felt tired, days when I wanted to stop, days when English felt impossible again. Sometimes I studied hard but forgot everything. Sometimes I compared myself to fluent speakers online, and comparison is dangerous. I watched people speaking beautiful English and thought, why am I still struggling? Why is my English slow? Why am I still making mistakes? But then I learned another important lesson. Everyone learns differently. Some people learn fast, some people learn slowly, but speed does not matter. Consistency matters. If you continue, you improve. Simple. So I stopped competing with others. I only competed with the old Leo, the Leo who was too afraid to speak, the Leo who stayed silent, the Leo who believed English was impossible. And when I looked back, I realized something powerful. I had already come far. One word became 10 words. 10 words became sentences. Sentences became conversations. Conversations slowly became confidence. And even today, I am still learning. Yes, I still make mistakes. I still forget words. I still learn new expressions. Sometimes I still feel nervous, but now I understand something important. Learning English isn't a finish line. It's a journey, a long journey, and that's okay. Because every day I become a little better. Sometimes improvement is fast, sometimes it's slow, but slow progress is still progress. Now, when I see someone struggling with English, I understand them. I understand their fear, their frustration, their tiredness, because I was there too. How it feels to stay quiet because you are afraid of mistakes. I know how it feels to understand grammar but forget everything when speaking. I know how painful it feels to think, maybe English isn't for me. But if you ask me what I learned from this journey, my answer is simple. Never quit, never stop, never believe that mistakes mean failure. Mistakes mean learning. Every mistake teaches something. Every bad sentence helps you improve. Every mistake teaches something. Every bad sentence helps you improve. Every difficult day makes you stronger. If you're learning English right now and feel tired, I want to tell you something. You are closer than you think. Maybe today feels difficult. Maybe you feel slow. Maybe speaking feels scary, but improvement is happening. Even when you cannot see it, trust the progress. Keep listening. Keep reading. Keep speaking. Keep making mistakes. One day, suddenly, you will understand something you never understood before. One day, you will speak without fear. One day, English will feel natural. And on that day, you will remember the difficult beginning. You will remember the fear, the mistakes, the frustration, and you will smile because you never gave up. And for me, I am Leo, the boy born in Barcelona who once believed English was impossible, the boy who was afraid to speak, the boy who made many mistakes, and the boy who is still learning, because learning never truly ends. Every day I learn something new. Every day I improve a little more, and every day I remind myself of something powerful. You do not need perfect English to start. You only need courage. Courage to speak, courage to fail, courage to continue. Because success in English does not belong to the smartest people. It belongs to the people who refuse to quit. And I refused to quit. People often see success, but they do not see the struggle. They see confidence, but they do not see fear. They hear someone speaking English well and think, wow, English is easy for him. But they never see the difficult days behind the progress. And my journey, it was full of difficult days. After some months of learning English, I believed things would become easier quickly. I thought, maybe after 6 months I will speak fluently. But reality was different. Some days English felt easy. Other days it felt impossible. One morning, I woke up feeling confident. I watched an English video and understood many sentences. I felt proud. I felt strong. I thought, finally, I am improving. But the next day, everything changed. I watched another video. I understood almost nothing. The words sounded too fast, too difficult, too confusing. And suddenly, fear returned. Why can't I understand? Am I getting worse? Am I wasting my time? I felt frustrated. Sometimes I even closed my books and stopped studying for days. I wanted fast results, but learning English does not work that way. It is not magic. It takes time and patience, something I did not have at first. One evening, I sat alone in my room in Barcelona. Outside, I could hear people talking and laughing in the streets. The city looked alive, but inside my room, I felt stuck. I opened my notebook, hundreds of words, grammar notes, practice sentences, but my confidence felt broken. I asked myself a painful question. Will I ever speak English well? For a moment, I wanted to quit. Really quit. I thought, maybe English is only for talented people. Maybe I started too late. Maybe my brain isn't good at language. These thoughts stayed in my mind for many days, and this is something many English learners understand. Sometimes the biggest problem isn't vocabulary. It's not grammar. It's not pronunciation. The biggest problem is your mind, the voice inside your head that says, you cannot do this. That voice is dangerous because if you believe it, you stop trying. But one night, something happened. I was scrolling through videos online when I heard an old man speaking English. His English wasn't perfect. He made mistakes. He spoke slowly, but he smiled proudly. And he said something I never forgot. Do not be afraid of broken English. Be afraid of never trying. That sentence hit me hard. I stayed silent for a moment. Then I looked at myself and thought, maybe I am too focused on perfection. Maybe my problem was simple. I wanted perfect English too soon. But language learning is messy. Children make mistakes. Adults make mistakes. Even fluent speakers make mistakes. So why was I afraid? That night, I changed my mindset. I made a new promise to myself. I said, Leo, stop trying to sound perfect. Just speak. And that changed everything again. Instead of waiting for confidence, I started building confidence. How? By speaking. Even when I sounded bad, even when I made mistakes, I started talking to myself every day. At first, it felt strange, very strange. I looked in the mirror and said, hello, Leo, how are you today? Then I answered, I am good today. I am good. Today I want to practice English. Simple conversations, small conversations, but they help me. Because speaking is like exercise. If you never practice, your speaking muscles stay weak. I also changed that way I learned English. Before, I studied like school. Grammar, vocabulary lists, memorization, and honestly, it felt boring. So I asked myself, what do I enjoy? The answer was easy. Stories, videos, football, music, so I used them to learn English. I watched football interviews in English. I listened to simple podcasts. I watched short videos with subtitles. At first, understanding was difficult, but I noticed something important. When you enjoy learning, you learn faster. English stopped feeling like homework. It became part of my life. When I walked outside, I described things in English. The sky looks beautiful. The cafe looks busy. Today feels cold. Small habits, but powerful habits. And slowly, something amazing happened. English stopped feeling foreign. It started feeling familiar. One afternoon, something happened that I will never forget. I was walking near a busy place in Barcelona. Tourists stood everywhere. People spoke many languages. Then suddenly a tourist looked at me. He looked confused. He asked me something in English. Normally, I would panic. Normally, fear would win. But this time, something felt different. I took a deep breath. I listened carefully. And I answered, slowly, not perfectly, but clearly. We spoke for almost 3 minutes. 3 whole minutes. To some people, that sounds small, but for me, it felt huge. After the conversation ended, I walked away smiling. I wanted to celebrate. I wanted to tell everyone, because for the first time, I realized something. English was becoming real. I was no longer only studying English. I was using English, and that changed my confidence forever. Of course, problems still existed. Pronunciation was still difficult. Sometimes people repeated questions because they did not understand me. Sometimes I forgot easy words in the middle of conversations. One time I wanted to say, I am excited, but I forgot the word. My mind became empty, so I smiled awkwardly and used simpler words. That moment embarrassed me, but later I laughed because I learned another lesson. You do not need difficult words to communicate. Simple English works too. That realization made me relax. I stopped trying to sound smart. I focused on being clear. And honestly, that helped me improve faster. Because confidence grows when pressure disappears. Another difficult thing was comparing myself to others. Sometimes I watched people online speaking beautiful English, perfect pronunciation, fast speaking, big vocabulary, and I felt small. I thought, why am I not like them? Why is my progress so slow? But comparison steals happiness. I learned that slowly. One day I looked at my old notebook, the notebook from my first month's learning English. The pages were full of mistakes, simple words, very short sentences, and suddenly I realized something important. I had already improved a lot. Sometimes we forget how far we have come. We only focus on how far we still need to go. That is dangerous because growth becomes invisible. So I started celebrating small wins, understanding one new sentence, victory, learning 5 words, victory, speaking for 1 minute, victory, watching a short video without subtitles, big victory. Little by little, confidence returned. Not fake confidence, real confidence. The kind that grows slowly, the kind built through mistakes. Month turned into days. Month turned into years. And English slowly became part of my identity. I still remember the first time I watched a full English video and understood most of it. I could not believe it. I paused the video many times and smiled because I remembered the old Leo, the boy who once understood nothing, the boy who thought English was impossible. That memory gave me strength, but my journey still continues because the truth is simple. I am still learning. Yes, even today. Sometimes I still search for words. Sometimes pronunciation still feels difficult. Sometimes fast conversations confuse me. But now I am not afraid anymore because I understand something powerful. Fluency isn't perfection. Fluency is confidence. Fluency is communication. Fluency is continuing even when you make mistakes. And if there's one thing I want every English learner to remember, it is this. Do not wait to become perfect before speaking. Speak now, speak badly, speak slowly, speak with mistakes. Because silence never improves. Practice improves. One day, without noticing, you will understand more, speak better, feel stronger, and suddenly the thing that once felt impossible will become possible. That is exactly what happened to me. I am Leo, a boy from Barcelona, still learning, still improving, still making mistakes, but still moving forward, because progress matters more than perfection. And no matter how difficult English feels today, I will never stop learning. Fear is quiet. Sometimes nobody sees it, nobody hears it, but inside you it feels loud, very loud. For many years, fear followed me everywhere. Fear sat beside me when I opened an English book. Fear stood next to me when I watched English videos. Fear whispered in my mind every time I wanted to speak. What if you say the wrong word? What if people laugh at you? What if people laugh at your accent? What if you sound foolish? And because of fear, I stayed quiet, too quiet. I knew some English, not perfect English, but enough to try. Yet trying felt dangerous. So instead of speaking, I listened. Instead of asking questions, I stayed silent. Instead of practicing, I waited. I waited for confidence. I waited to feel ready. But here is something I learned too late. Confidence does not come first. Action comes first. Confidence comes later. At that time, I still lived my normal life in beautiful Barcelona. The city was always alive. People filled the streets, music played in small cafes, tourists walked everywhere with cameras and maps. And English? English was everywhere. I heard it in restaurants, in buses, near famous places. Sometimes I secretly listened to tourists speaking English. I tried to understand their conversations. Sometimes I understood small parts, sometimes nothing at all, but I kept listening. One afternoon, something happened that changed me forever. I was sitting in a small cafe. The weather was warm. People talked around me. I was drinking coffee and watching the world move outside. Then I noticed an older man sitting nearby. He looked confused. He had a map in his hands. He looked left, then right, then back at the map again. Suddenly, he looked at me and asked in English, "Excuse me, can you help me?" My heart started beating fast, very fast. Fear arrived immediately. My mind became loud. "No, Leo, you will make mistakes. You will embarrass yourself." For 1 second, I almost said, "Sorry, I don't speak English," even though it wasn't true, because fear likes excuses. Fear wants comfort. Fear wants silence. But something inside me stopped me. I remembered all those months of studying, all those difficult days, all those videos, all those words, and I asked myself one question: if not now, when? So I smiled nervously and I said, "Yes, I can try." Not perfect English, simple English, but enough. The man smiled kindly. He asked me how to get somewhere nearby. I listened carefully. Some words were difficult. I felt nervous, very nervous. But I tried my best. Slowly, I answered him. I used easy English. Sometimes I stopped, sometimes I searched for words. But something beautiful happened. He understood me, really understood me. We spoke for several minutes, and before leaving, he smiled and said, "Your English is very good, thank you, very good." Those words stayed in my heart, because he did not see my mistakes. He only saw communication. After he left, I sat there quietly. I smiled to myself, not because my English was perfect, but because I had finally done something important. I had spoken despite fear. That day taught me one of the biggest lessons of my life. Fear disappears when action begins, not before. Before speaking, fear feels huge. After speaking, fear becomes smaller. And after enough practice, fear slowly loses power. That moment changed how I learned English. I stopped hiding. I stopped waiting. I stopped saying, "Maybe tomorrow." Instead, I started saying, "Why not today?" So I challenged myself. Every day, small challenge, nothing big. Sometimes I ordered food in English when tourists were nearby. Sometimes I asked people questions online. Sometimes I recorded my voice speaking English. At first, I hated my voice, really hated it. I sounded strange, slow and natural. My pronunciation felt wrong. I listened to recordings and thought, do I really sound like this? But instead of quitting, I kept recording again and again and again, because improvement comes from discomfort. The uncomfortable things help us grow. Slowly, I noticed change. My pronunciation became clearer. My speaking became smoother. And little by little, English became more natural. Not easy, but easier. Then came another difficult problem: people. Sometimes other people make learning harder. One day, someone laughed at my English. Not in a cruel way, but enough to hurt. I made a mistake while speaking, and someone smiled and corrected me quickly. I felt embarrassed. For the rest of the day, I stayed quiet. I thought maybe I should stop speaking again. But that night, I thought deeply, and I realized something powerful. Mistakes are part of every journey. Nobody learns perfectly. Babies fall before walking, and language learners, they make mistakes before becoming confident. So I made another promise to myself. I said, "Leo, never let embarrassment stop your growth." That promise became important because embarrassment lasts minutes, But regret can last years. I did not want regret. I wanted growth, so I kept going, step by step, mistake by mistake, word by word. One thing that helped me a lot was changing my environment. I surrounded myself with English. My phone, English. Music, English. Videos, English. Books, simple English books. Even when I felt lazy, English stayed around me. At first, my brain felt tired, very tired. But over time, something surprising happened. English stopped feeling strange. I became familiar with expressions. I recognized words faster. Listening became easier. And when magical things started happening, sometimes I dreamed in English. Yes, real dreams, short dreams, simple dreams, but still in English. When that happened for the first time, I woke up smiling because I realized, wow, English is becoming part of me. Of course, hard days still existed. Some weeks felt terrible. Some days I forgot words. Some days I felt stuck. But now I understood something important. Feeling stuck does not mean failure. Sometimes growth is invisible, like a tree growing slowly underground. You cannot always see progress, but progress still exists. That idea helped me stay patient. And patience changed everything, because English learning isn't fast. It is slow, sometimes frustrating, sometimes tiring, but worth it. Today, when people hear me speak English, they sometimes say, "Wow, your English is good," and I smile. But they do not know the full story. They do not know the fear, the embarrassment, the lonely practice, the difficult nights, the moments I almost quit. They only see the result, not the journey. And honestly, I am still learning, still growing, still improving, because language learning never truly ends. Every day I discover new words, new expressions, new mistakes, and that's okay. Because now I love the process. I no longer fear mistakes. I welcome them, because every mistake teaches something. If you are reading my story right now and learning English too, I want to tell you something important. Do not be ashamed of beginner English. Do not fear mistakes. Do not wait for perfect confidence. Speak anyway.